Because you're doing the round, it's like
the discussion.
Yeah.
And so Ethna recommends that we use the whiteboard. Erica's going to help me transcribe. If I'm standing there and the board is here, is that going to be a problem for your camera?
No, I'm wondering if you there and maybe keep the board
on top. Okay.
Is that okay? Because then I can get like all of that in one.
Okay. So then when Julio is done, that's something we'll need more than we need to get this.
Yeah, for sure. We can definitely make that.
Excellent. Scholar down.
Yeah, I think that'll work really well because this kid, I got one shot, and then that will still allow the folks who are watching to see what's on.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not used to staying for a conversation like that to stay still, but it's better for me to stay behind the podium so people can see me.
Out here.
Okay.
And we also, if it's spread out like this, we might ask people to move in so we can get around.
Yeah. And when it's that time, can I move the computer?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And another thing, if you prefer to not be able to show it, you have a nice talk. And I know that. I mean, we can use the photos, but it's also a little funky.
I'll try with it.
Okay.
I was more worried when I thought I was going to write on the board myself, and I was more worried, but if Erica's going to help me, then I think it'll be good. And now we can move the next cards out of front of me and like have a little table. Okay, thank you.
I can do it like right after this session. Well, I don't know what's I just want to see if there's a break.
No, absolutely, whatever it is. This one ends at 3:15. 3:30.
So maybe after the last session, after like 5 o'clock.
Is it possible to...
If it's just 5 minutes, I think I'll do it.
It's like, I mean, it's all the same number of minutes. Would you be available around 6?
Around 6? Yeah. I think I have dinner.
So, 5 would be ideal.
Yeah, I can do it real quick. But, another option is I see HQ and Crystal, and I'm sure we could do it too.
Okay.
I'll come and visit them for Arizona. I know, you're bored with seeing me. You're bored with seeing me. I said, I know, you're bored with seeing me.
Okay.
El Julio en 1984.
No, el año pasado.
Is Julio 1983? That's what she got.
Real quick, see some new faces. Welcome. Does anyone need ASL interpretation? Okay, thank you. Does anyone need Spanish interpretation?
¿Alguien necesita interpretación en español?
All right. Thank you to our interpreters. They're diligent, underutilized. I appreciate both of you. A couple quick things if you're new and you haven't been here yet. We have a bunch of lunches left. So if you didn't have lunch and you'd like lunch, you should go grab lunch or soda or whatever you'd like to make you feel accommodated. Reminder, a gender-neutral restroom is on the 3rd floor on the bookstore side across from the Kashu room. Also, we are encouraging you to tweet away. The hashtag is queer migrations. So feel free to tweet. Hannah's doing a diligent job tweeting on my account, so blame her, not me, if anything inappropriate is said. Very good. So, and now, did I remember everything? I said the bathroom. So, now, Juan, you're going to come introduce our guest.
Okay, so I will be introducing the fabulous Julio Salgado. So Julio Salgado is the co-founder of DreamersAdrift.com. His activist artwork or artivist has become a staple of the Dream Act movement. His status as an undocumented queer artist, and I would say photo too, has fueled the content of his illustrations, which depict key individuals and moments of the Dream Act movement. Undocumented students and allies across the country have used Salgado's artwork to call attention to the youth-led movement. His work has been praised by OC Weekly's Gustavo Arellano, KPCC FM 89.3's multi-American blog, and then the influential journal Colored Lines. In July 2012, Salgado and other undocumented art activists joined Jose A. Vargas on the cover of Time magazine. Salgado's graduated from California State University, Long Beach with a degree in journalism. To see more of his artwork and to also support him, please go to juliosalgado.com and purchase some beautiful artwork from him.
Thank you for reading my bio. And I thought you were going to say about the paper that you were writing. Didn't say anything, but fine. Thank you so much for having me here, Carmen. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm so excited to be back in Tucson and just be able to share some of my work. I'm happy that people get to connect with the artwork that I do, but it's always nice to be able to share some of the background of some of the pieces that I'm going to share with you. And because I'm an artist that's still alive, and so to be able to talk about it. I don't wait until I die to have people write about it. So thank you for supporting the artwork, and so I'm gonna just go ahead and start what I came here for. I'm gonna start with how do I escape? I'm going to start with a video. I'm part of as Juan mentioned, Dreamers Adrift. Dreamers Adrift is a media collective where we use video and music and poetry and all types of creative mediums to sort of challenge the narrative that is being put out there, that has been put out there about undocumented immigrants, since people started writing about our about our lives. And so I'm just are we here? Okay, cool.
You talk.
I'll talk more.
And
All right.
take that out if you want.
Okay.
Just
I
go
feel like
over.
very. Like I'm about to perform. I'm performing. and so we're not actors. We're not professional writers or whatever you want to call it. But we live in an era of YouTube, of do-it-yourself media. And so we started this project in 2010 after we saw the way that the media was portraying us and constantly calling us illegals and constantly us putting us in this either like victimizing picture or criminal, you know, like it was about, it was like we're either or. And so we decided to use humor and at times, you know, sad poetry to really pinpoint what exactly is going on in our lives. This first video that I'm going to show you, it was part of a project that we did over the summer, and we connected with other undocumented and queer writers, and you know they had some poems through this project called UndocuWriting, and actually one of the writers is here, Alejandra. Sorry, I'm pointing out because you're here, and so we wanted to put these videos out during Pride Month in June, because a lot of the times when you talk about queer issues, you know, there's, you know, and we've been talking about this, you know, folks have been mentioned this about like how gay marriage and, you know, joining the army is like a lot of the time central to the conversation. And so what we wanted to do with this videos is show beyond, you know, look beyond their stories beyond that. And so the first video that I'm going to show you, it's by a writer. Her name is Kemi Bello, and she's an undocumented queer immigrant from Nigeria, and she grew up in Texas. And this is a poem that she wrote, and I'm going to look it up real quick. Nice weather. So we have the videos on dreamersadrift.com, but I like YouTube just because it's faster.
Dear young brown displaced girl, tear down the wall you have built around your heart and cross the border back into yourself. You will not be stopped and frisked, questioned or profiled here as you explore the lonely desert of belly, the mountains of shoulder and the burdens they bear at their peaks, the slope of tongue, the valley between eyebrows that you store your worry in. You are one among a line of generational refugees, historical nomads still searching for the homes inside of ourselves, and in the dust you write your story in the shapes of your footsteps and in the direction in which your heart beats. The start of this journey is not the first chapter of your story, nor the last. You are a book, waiting to be read by those who will come after us. So leave them the imprint of your fist in the appendix, and the shadow of your smile in the glossary. They will weep as they read your table of contents, and they will realize why you began with the end. You carry entire ecosystems in the folds of your fists, store the heirloom seeds of your people between your knuckles to scatter along your journey, leaving a trail from origin to destinations so you may always find your way home in either direction. You are more than the pieces of paper that lay in tempting weight in front of you. They will dangle out of your reach like carrots and brand you with like cattle. Learn to taste the stories hidden in the accent of your name. Do not let them colonize your tongue. Keep the foreign in your pronunciation and remember the spicy smell of where you come from. In this new land of 99 cent stores, only the emotional trauma is free. They will gift you fear. Do not take it. They will offer you shame. Never let your head drop in response. They will hate you. Do not let their anger fill your heart. They hate you simply because they know your power, because they have been working to extinguish you for generations, yet the flames have never gone out. Your ancestors stoked the coals from their graves, and the legs of your people have buckled but never fallen. For still you rise. The new dawn will come, and again and again and again you will rise with the sun. They are amazed you are still standing in line, standing up in detention centers, though sometimes hanging at the end of a rope that held you too tight, standing in packed emergency rooms, though sometimes they flag to still of breath, standing even though we are broken, though our hips moan from the strain of bearing the weight of our grandmothers and the burdens they bore on their backs, still standing to stretch backs, forever bent over in fields and factories, standing after we stoop to pick up our dignity again and again and again. Still you will rise. And when you are tired of crossing borders, migrate to me. I will build a wall with my arms around the soft clouds of your waist and be your equator. When you are weary, you can rest in the hollow of my collarbone. I will find ways to distract your lips when your internalized oppression is too bitter to swallow. I want to see it blankets when the blues come knocking the injustice of it all. I will fill you up with stories of our people when the fridge is full of only crumbs. And when you are tired of crossing borders, migrate to me. We will guard the sovereign land of our bodies by any means necessary. We will quench our thirst from the rivers of our bloodstreams and be filled. We will build homes within each other that need not be sanctioned by any state. We will install no-fly zones above our hearts so that hate never reigns nor reigns. Only the teardrops of our ancestors will fall from the sky and pitter-patter sweet melodies across our hip bones. The spirits of our grandfathers will dance with joy at our union, will forgive us for sending only the ghosts of ourselves to stand by their deathbeds while we mourn from oceans away. And when you are tired of crossing borders, migrate to me. We will not apologize for this pursuit of decolonial love, for as they lay claim to our land, we will reclaim our bodies.
Yeah, so that was Camille Bello. She's the type of writer, artist who hates attention on her. But I'll just wait for that to show. You know, when I saw her, when I read this poem by her, you know, I was like, we need to illustrate this, we need to show this to the world, because what is going on here?
Oh, yes.
What do you do here? Continue. Oh.
I have no idea what's going on.
You know what? It's live.
Sorry.
I'm surprisingly not nervous at all. This is happening.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll see what that
So
is.
yes, just going with the flow. I love it. And as I mentioned, so we released those videos. We made 4 videos, a total of 4 videos during Pride Month, and the title of the series was called "Secrets and Borders: Our Stories Is All We Have," because that's literally our stories. I wanted to call it "Chismes All We Have," but then they were like, no, we should call it something else because this is like serious. And so you know, we were lucky enough to be able to work with 4 amazing writers for this, and continue. Okay. Cancel. And then hit it on. And then just go over. Okay, yeah. Oh, no. I think I have to play it by one. There we go. Okay, we're back on. Yes. All right. So yeah. So that video that you saw, you know, you're not going to see it on the, you know, on Univision or Telemundo or, you know, a channel, whatever Anglo channel news you get news from. You know, they're not going to show us a 4-minute video about, you know, the realness of what it's like to be undocumented and the complexities of what it's like to be living this sort of like double life as an undocumented and queer person. And so you know, because we have YouTube and because we have all this access, you know, I feel like really lucky to be living in an era where I don't have to ask permission to do this. I'm gonna go straight out to the next this image that I love, you know, opening when I'm sharing our work. Is this image that was based on a photograph that we took as a family in 1995, which was the year that my parents made the decision to stay in this country. In 2010, a lot of us were really pushing for the DREAM Act. For some of you who might not be familiar with the DREAM Act, it would have allowed us to, you know, get a pathway to getting a green card if we did, you know, we went to high school, we went to college, or joined the army. So, you know, a lot of us were like, this is the thing that we've been fighting for. You know, a lot of us have been fighting this for years. It first came out in 2001, and 2010 was the year that, you know, we were really close. And the narrative at the time that we were you know, putting out there was, you know, I'm a good immigrant, I'm an American, accept me because, you know, I deserve things. And it was our parents' fault. It's our parents' fault. The reason why we're here, it's because they brought us here. They put us in this situation. And so while that was the only narrative that we knew at the time, it was a really fucked up narrative because we were throwing our parents under the bus. We're basically blaming our parents and doing what the media was already, putting us undocumented immigrants as students right here, and then our parents, were to blame. And so I was having a conversation like in 2001, a year after that, with a friend of mine, and we were like, we need to change that narrative. We need to put other stories out there. We need to not speak for our parents, but pay homage to our parents, because it takes responsibility and courage to move to a country where you may or may not know the language, where they may or may not like you because of the color of your skin, and where you may or may not have papers. And so, instead of continuing that, I was like, okay, well, we can, that was a time in our life that narrative, it was what we needed to do. But we need to, we need to evolve. We need to go past, those narratives. And so I created this image in honor of my parents. And we lost that because we used to move a lot. We moved to Long Beach when I was born in Ensenada, California, and we moved to Long Beach, and we used to move a lot, due to money. My parents were always never having a steady job, and so there was a lot of moving, and so we lost that photograph. But it was a really important year for me because I was 11 years old at the time. I didn't want to be here. I was like, I was like an angsty, going into teenagehood, and I didn't want to be here because my friends were all in Mexico, and so and I was put in this class in the 7th grade. And it was an art class where I was introduced to the work of this mujer. Are you guys familiar with Frida Kahlo? I think any artist, cites Frida Kahlo as one of the. There's something about Frida's work that just makes an impact on you. And as a young queer little boy who was really angry, seeing the work of Frida Kahlo was super inspirational because I was like, I am going through some of this shit right now. Like I needed art. I needed this to sort of make me feel like I was going to be fine. I was going to be okay. That I could use art to deal with some of these emotions. Of course, I wasn't thinking that way at the time. I was just being a boy, and seeing this just made a huge impression on me. And so I was like, I want to do that. I want to make sure. I want to be able to continue to do art because I've been drawing since I was a little kid. And so the fact that I didn't speak English here in this country, and I like talking, I like making friends. But I was always a kid in the back, and I'm sorry for the teachers here, but I was always the teacher, like the kid who was like drawing the teacher and like making fun of him. And the kid next to me would be like, oh my god, so cool, you can draw. And we would start like talking and making friendships, like, oh my god, like you can say so many things, with art and without having to say anything. And so I ended up, I did, I went to 7th grade, up to my senior year. And the next photograph I'm going to show you, it's really embarrassing, but. Just because it was a really awkward moment in my life. It was my senior year in high school, and my friend recently sent me this picture, and I was like, oh my god, I was going through some things that year, because it was, for a lot of us undocumented students or undocumented high school students, this was 2001, that's the year I graduated from high school. It was a really confusing time because it's like, all this time, like your teachers were like, oh, you have good grades, you can go to college, you can, the world is your oyster. And, but, the reality was that, my parents never saved up for college. I didn't save up for college. I didn't qualify for a lot of, the money that was available for some students. And so, I was angry and because I was like, I wanted to, my art teacher was like, you can go to New York and be an artist. And I was like getting into Andy Warhol, and I wanted to do the whole art thing. But I couldn't, and so I found refuge a lot of the time in the work of female artists. I think female artists and their music, especially like Mexican artists like Jenny Rivera, who's my idol. Selena too, that's my idol. But I think women always have my back, and so I remember listening to a lot of people didn't know Jenny Rivera back in 2001, but she's from Long Beach where I grew up, and so I was listening to all this lyrics about heartbreak and the future and whatever, and so later on I got into MIA, who was doing her rap was about, or her music was about political music, and so women really had a huge impact in my life. as I moved on to college, and I ended up going to community college because luckily in 2001 in California there was something called AB 540, which allowed undocumented students to pay in-state tuition. At the time it was like $11 a unit, so right now it's like 40 something. I don't even, something, but that was something, it allowed me to to start my education. And so I started my education at Long Beach City College. And I majored in art because I was like, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna be an artist. I'm gonna figure out my own. And so I started looking up at the work of Fabiana Rodriguez, Esther Hernandez, and Alma Lopez, who again inspiration. Women who because we think about Chicano movement, Chicano artists, we highlight the work of men. Men always highlight that. That's just patriarchy for you. And so, but at the same time, I was sitting in this classrooms where I was reading about European art, and I was studying like old white dudes that were dead, and I didn't see myself in art. I was like, art is not for me. Art is not something that that I can use. And my parents were like, what are you gonna do with an art degree? I was like, I don't know, I have something. It was a confusing moment in my life. So I was like, I wasn't sure what I was gonna do with this thing called art. Eventually, I found out about the work of journalists like Gustavo Arellano, Lalo Alcaraz, and Aaron Magruder, who were using humor and journalism to tell stories in our communities. And finally, to see like other men of color doing like really badass work and work that was really questioning what was going on in our communities, I was like, I want to do that. I mean, I don't know if they're queer, but I was like finally seeing somebody like myself doing some work. I was like, it was something that I could aspire to. And the cool thing about this especially Gustavo and Lalo, who are from Southern California, they're really accessible. And so I remember Gustavo wrote a piece in 2006, I believe, and he wrote this piece about how he was trying to smuggle a student back into the country. And I read this piece, and up to that time, again, the climate in early 2000 was very anti-immigrant, and the pieces that were being put out there by journalists was about how we're being called illegal immigrants, they're breaking the laws, and how dare they ask for things. And so what Gustavo Arellano did with this piece, he humanized the dude. He humanized the student who was just all he wanted. What happened with his story was that he lived in Orange County, and there was a raid in the trailer park that the community that he lived, and he was deported. And so Gustavo was trying to bring him back in, and he couldn't do it. He just I forget what the end of the piece was, but basically the guy he just didn't have the guts to do it. But seeing that somebody like a journalist was writing something like this, it sparked the interest in me. I'm like, I want to tell stories too. I want to tell stories. And as an undocumented person, I was like, who else to tell stories about undocumented people but ourselves? And so I ended up changing my majors to journalism. And so, while I was in school, I started, I just, started doing, I started writing pieces about undocumented people that I knew. And at the time, I was like in the closet. Some people knew that I was undocumented and queer, but it was like I had to like change hats and depending on the community that I was at. But I was like, I'm going to use this platform that I had, the newspaper, to share some of the stories. And so even though I was part of this of the newspaper, there were still other things that I wanted to write about. Like Juan mentioned joteria. Like what does that mean, right? What does that mean for us? What does it mean to be undocumented? What does it mean to be UndocuQueer? And so we started this scene called El Reflejo. And we used to throw parties on the weekends, and we would charge our friends to make, because it costs money to print. And so, so it was like my first introduction to do-it-yourself journalism. Like you don't need anybody's permission to tell your story when there's tools out there, and it's just simple black and white copies. And eventually we became environmental friendly. Like it was just online, but it was so empowering to like be able to tell your own story and not having somebody like a school newspaper telling them, I don't know if you can use that word here. Let's edit that out. So it was a free for all. We also used to talk smack on the Chicano department, because some of the professors were like down, but they wouldn't help us with money, and so it was a really interesting dynamic with students and professors. We were holding them accountable because they were like telling us, go do it, go ahead, and we're like asking for help, and they were like, I don't know, so we were calling them out. But at the time too, there was, if you haven't heard of the Pansamana Logs by Virginia Gris, it's an amazing play. The Pansamana Logs, it's sort of like a take on the Vagina Monologues, and it's about Latina women's and bodies. And I was asked to do a poster about the piece, and I was like, as a queer man, the way that the fashion industry works, and the way that gay men talk about women's bodies, and like the way that they judge them, like, girl, why are you so fat? Or girl, what are you? And I don't understand. I don't understand that. I never understood why men feel free to judge women's bodies. Both men, straight and gay males. And so I was like, I want to pay homage to my friends, to the people that look like my friends. I started making this series called Chubby Girl Art. And so it was just basically my friends. I was just drawing my friends and posting them on Facebook, and they're like, oh my God, draw me. And so it was a really interesting collaboration, because again, I would ask them, like, how do you want to be drawn, or like, what are some of your inspirations? And so very early collaborations. Finally, in 2010, it took me like 9.5 years. 8.5 years or something like that. But I finally graduated. I got my degree. I like to show it off because, even if I still can get deported, even with DACA, if something happens, like, they can take this away from me. This is something that I have. And because there were many times where I was like, what's the point of this? I don't have papers, why do I need to finish college? Who's gonna care? And even when I had this degree in my hands, I was still feeling sorry for myself. I was like, I'm not gonna be able to do anything. I was trying to apply for jobs and in newspapers, and I was like, I'll enter for you. I'll do it for free. I really wanted to be part of. I want to be a journalist really bad. But no, it was like, no, you can't. And so at the time I was working at this restaurant that I shall not name because I don't like anymore. But I was there for a long time making burritos with Chipotle. And at the time, it was horrible. I mean, my coworkers were amazing, but just the fact that they treated animals better than their workers, it was just like I never understood that idea. I mean, not that animals don't deserve rights or whatever, but it was just really shitty working conditions. And so I was, I had this degree and I couldn't do anything. But then this happened, and Raul, I'm gonna call you out because you're here, and it's awesome that you're here because I never showed this picture with I did it one time with Yahaira was like in the picture too. But this happened. This happened in 2010 here, and while I was feeling sorry for myself and I was trying to figure out what to do with my life, I was like, what are they doing? They're getting arrested. They were doing a sit-in at McCain's office here in Tucson. And they were basically changing the narrative of what it was like to tell our stories, because up to this point, we had a lot of people talking for us. We had a lot of people saying, maybe you shouldn't show your face in the camera because, you can get deported, or, we'll talk for you. We'll do the talking points. The Democrats love doing that. They're like, we're all about immigration. Let me share your story. And so what these folks did, and I mean, I'm not speaking for y'all, but what it did to me when I saw this picture, I was like, they're changing this. They're changing. There's something going on right now. And instead of feeling sorry for myself, I need to figure out a way to help, or because this was for us. They didn't do it just to be pretty in there and then take a picture. This was a historical moment to show a face to what was going on in the country, what a lot of us were going through at the time. And 2010 was like a really important year because a lot of this thing was happening. People were getting arrested everywhere, and so as a journalist, I was looking this from a journalistic perspective. I was like, this needs to be documented in one way or another. And you had all these photographers or these writers who would like show up to the actions. They would take their pictures, they would write their articles, and they were bound, but we were still undocumented. And so I was like, how is that good for us? How what they were doing, they were trying to empower the community, but here you had other people, sort of like thinking that this is a cool thing, and then bouncing. And I was like, we need to take back those images, those things that those images that were being put out there, and take it back and own it back. So this is one of the first images that I drew with the word "I exist," because even though they were doing this, they were still calling us illegals, and I was like, no, we exist. We're here in your face, and another great thing about this was that people at the forefront of the organizing places where people were organizing actions were queer and undocumented, and they were unapologetically queer. They were like, we're queer and we're undocumented, and if we learn from past histories, when you're queer in certain movements, you're told, just don't talk about that, we'll talk about this. Especially like in the migrants' rights movement, you had a lot of religious folks who were like held down to talk about immigration, but let's not talk about the queerness because, it's not, you're gonna go to hell. And same with the queer communities, like you would go and all they wanted to talk about was gay marriage and joining the military, and it's like, can we talk about people getting deported? Can we talk about these things? And so they were like doing that in one thing, and like in one movement, and being talking this word intersectionality that people with big words like to use, but they were talking about both things, intersectionalities. And so I don't know who came up with this term UndocuQueer. I saw it in my news feed, and I was like, that is such a great term to for people to identify as, because as the time was passing by, a lot of us, I personally, me, I sort of started like not liking the word dreamer because of that special like that narrative of like you're good, you're perfect, you're what we want to show off, but our parents were like left behind. And so, I like the term UndocuQueer because it talks about two issues, and I wanted to pay homage to the folks who were at the forefront of this movement and make sure that people don't forget who was doing this. And as an artist, as a journalist, I wanted to hear what it meant for different folks to be UndocuQueer, because I'm in California. I'm in this like bubble, like lefty bubble. We still have our issues there, but that's totally different being UndocuQueer in California to be UndocuQueer, I don't know, in Georgia and in other parts of the country. And so I really wanted to, I reach out to a lot of folks, and I'm like, what does it mean for you? What does it mean to be UndocuQueer? And I got really interesting quotes from different perspectives. Last year, I was able to collaborate with Galeria La Raza, which is a really popular, really famous, not famous, what's the word I want to use? Historical spot in the Mission District in San Francisco. And if you all know or familiar with what's happening in San Francisco, especially in the Mission, like people are getting kicked out of their homes. Gentrification is real, and people are getting kicked out of their homes. And I really wanted to be intentional about, okay, that's cool that I get to put a billboard, but what about the billboard? And for me, it was about, how can we make sure that our communities understand what I'm trying to say with, or what people are trying to say with UndocuQueer? Because if you can't explain those words to your abuelita, to your tia, to the people who are being directly affected by this issue, we're doing something wrong. And so what I ended up doing, my way of like figuring this out, because there's a lot of migrant folks that live in there, putting some quotes in Spanish in the shirts, and sort of try to make it for folks to understand. And I remember my dad coming, and because I moved to the Bay like almost 3 years ago, and my dad was just like reading it and just seeing his face and trying to understand. It's like, all right, like you got to start with the family, you got to start with your own people, and it was a really beautiful moment to see my dad, who's still was still grappling with the idea of having a queer son. I don't know what it's like to have a queer son. And so to see him and sort of like nodding and understanding was like, that was a beautiful moment for me in my life. And I remember I talked about this like 2 weeks ago. I was at Casa Fullerton and my parents came, and like my dad almost started bawling when I was like telling this story, and I was like, oh my God, like this art has healed us, as a family, and so I'm really thankful for that. That was intense. So Dreamers Adrift. So Dreamers Adrift, as I mentioned, it's an online media collective, and as I mentioned, we started making videos. How do I go back to the okay? Let me look it up real quick. So we started making this series called Undocumented and Awkward, because it could be hella awkward when you're like 26 years old and having to explain why don't you have a driver's license. And so we started using humor to, I was like, okay, I'm tired of being a victim. A lot of us, who are involved in this, we use humor. We make fun. You just gotta laugh, because crying is nice and everything, but it doesn't resolve anything. And I'm the type of person who likes to make fun of shitty situations. And so this specific, I'm sorry for all the cursing, by the way, but I cursed. This episode specifically, we collaborated with some folks called Aspire. There's a group of folks called Aspire in the Bay Area, and they're undocumented API folks. And they're like, they call us out. They're like, why, whenever you make these videos, only talking about issues of like things that happen to Latinos? Like, we're also undocumented. And I was like, that's right. I'm like, I can tell the story of an API person, you know, through these videos. But let's work together. Let's collaborate. Like, what are some of the experiences? And I'm just going to show the video. It's hella problematic. You can laugh, but we'll talk about it. We'll analyze it afterwards. Dude, freaking bus is taking forever again.
We're gonna be late again.
It's all your fault.
My fault?
Yeah.
How? You're the one fixing your hair.
Girl, but it's good. Good, that's good. Can't deny. You just scream
No, you can't do this.
Whatever. Dude, le cambia acá los chinitos, usan el lado también.
Desde que están jodos.
Me cae tan gordo que la gente teniendo papeles y teniendo licencia puedan ir manejando la escuela y uno que no tiene papeles tiene que tomar gas y la matan haciendo espacio.
Te apuesto que el carro lo tiene en la casa, pero solo por no ponerle gas.
Gente joda. Güey, ¿qué es eso?
No sé, güey, se me olvidó el reloj.
Excuse me, do you have the time?
Sí, son las 2. Sí los entendí. ¿Sabes qué? También soy un documentado y no tengo licencia, por eso estoy aquí esperando por luz.
¿Eres un documentado de quién?
No, de Perú.
I'm mad, y'all laughing at this. Okay. So yeah, so this actually happened. So Steve Lee, you know, he mentioned, he's like, you know, I would go to the spaces and people talk smack in Spanish in front of me and not knowing that I speak Spanish, and that just goes to show, like, you know, how just because we you know, we can be victims of we can be, you know, oppressed or whatever, we can be problematic too, and we need to check ourselves when, you know, being called out, and I've experienced some of that, and I think, you know, learning it's good, learning from it, but it's like, what do we do with this? And for me as a creative person, I wanted to like do something like this to show, and at the same time, because he was really, you know, like, he wasn't mad or anything, but, you know, I was like, this is really messed up, and we need to highlight what's happening, and so. And we actually made 2 videos with them, and you can see all those videos on dreamersandrift.com. The most recent series that we started, and again, none of us are actors, we're not professionals, we just do this because my roommate has a camera. And so recently there was a show on HBO called oh my god, Looking. It's a new HBO show, and basically the premise of the show, it follows, it's called the gay Sex in the City, because it follows like 3 or 4 gay men, and you know, in the Castro district in San Francisco, you know, well known, like, you know, it's like the gay area. But I remember watching the show, you know, and I'm thinking, you know, I was like, I don't see myself in this. I don't see my friends. I don't see the people that I met here in the Bay Area. I don't see them talking about some of the issues that we're dealing with. And I was talking to my roommate, and she's like, we'll do something about it. Like, let's do a series. And I was like, sure, okay, let's do it. Why not? And so we started a series called Osito. Again, this is an experiment. Please don't judge it too much. I'm going to show it. I'm going to show this, one of the most recent ones, where we're talking about. Sorry, I had this video set up at I'm a professional. Where is it? Okay, this one.
coming into the living room watching you chew your fucking fingernails. They're 31-year-old ass bros.
Well, you have your room in the kitchen, you can hang out there.
This is the common area. This is where we all get to kick it. I don't need to be rolling up in here looking at your beaver ass, chewing off your fingernails. It's gross.
Not today.
What are you up to?
Well,
I'm still worried of the day today, Julio.
after, paying bills, buying some groceries, paying more bills and, helping my parents out a little bit, my savings come out to a grand total of $914.12. And that's about for 2 years, right?
You have paid $914 in 2 years?
And 12 cents.
Wow. Fucking early retirement. Alright, gay cruise you've been scoping out for the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was saving up for. A fucking gay cruise.
That's how it is, man.
Yeah, I mean, how much have you fucking saved up in the last 2 years?
I've never showed anybody this. I'm gonna show you because you're the homie. But I keep it hella low key. And even the girlfriend knows, so don't be telling nobody. I'm not saying she's a gold digger, but I'm just saying.
I'm telling her that.
I was saying people change when they see a little bit of money.
Yeah,
Check it out.
God damn, you saved that much in 2 years? No wonder you're not a fucking righteous. What a new job.
Just because I don't have a full-time job doesn't mean that I'm not building for myself. I'm hustling, dude.
Next time, guys.
No, not anymore. That's in the past.
They should say that. That shit is fun. Your job is still processing.
No, dude, I'm a hustler, man.
What are you hustling?
You know, I got investments here and there, move money here and there, a couple items that I can move around. I just know that when shit pops up, I know to buy low, sell high. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Hustling for myself.
Yeah. I mean, you basically have been doing what immigrants and like fucking people of color have been doing for years.
It's the hustle. It's the only way to do it.
Yeah.
Besides, I make my own hours. I'm my own boss. I can move around, find consulting gigs here and there. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I mean, yeah, like, I guess, I'm lucky, be able to.
Well, wait. You got a full-time gig. I thought you'd be making much more money selling your art. What's going on with that?
Well, I mean, again, I'm really lucky to be, being able to work in the area that I work and being able to use art, but I'm horrible at the business. I just, I don't keep on my website. I rarely advertise the art with some of the art.
Don't say, you could be selling hell more posters than that.
I don't have that in here.
You know what you need? You need an intern. You need somebody that can help you gather your affairs.
I'm not going to have somebody more.
Yo, you got people who are vouching for you, who want to help you out, who want to see you succeed, you know what I'm saying? Myself included. And you need to set some resources and some time aside to get all this shit figured out. Because right now is the moment. If you don't take advantage of the moment, it's gonna pass you by and you're gonna get left in the dust with nothing. You know what I'm saying?
You're shit capitalist.
Nah, dude, that's not real hustler shit, you know what I'm saying?
I'm gonna be like the one
Hustle on, you know what I'm saying?
I'm gonna be like the one that try and wonder, you're gonna forget about certain things.
Okay, I'll cut it short. It's kind of too long, but basically you get the idea. And so these are some stories that I don't see represented in media, and so you don't have any excuse to not tell your story when you have YouTube and your roommate has a camera. And the feedback that we've been getting is really interesting because, again, we are now professional actors, and it's an experiment of just putting some of the issues that that we deal with, which is like dealing with money, helping your parents out. What's for a lot of us who are undocumented and whose parents are not saving up for retirement, like what does that look like for them? How are we, because we're the retirement, we're our parents' retirement, and so how does that look like? But it doesn't look sellable in for an HBO half-an-hour series that likes to show a lot of nakedness. And so that that's basically what we tried with Osito. I don't know what's going. I don't it's just I'm happy to be able to just pull, basically putting things from our lives into it's like an open book for people to see. Some of the work that I do also includes collaborations. I started doing some collaborations with other artists. One of the collaborations, the earliest collaboration that I did was with Yosimar Reyes. He's a poet, and you know, he's like UndocuQueer, and you know, he's a mess. But I love him. And so you know, he wrote this piece called 5 Tips for Queer Boys, and so I wanted. He wrote it on Facebook, you know, he's just like a Facebook note status or whatever. And I was like, we need to illustrate this again. You know, like other artists inspire me to create stuff. And we made this images, and one of the interesting feedback that we got from folks online was the one in the corner. So I googled the word gay, and some of the images in the back, it's what you saw. So you Google gay, and like the first thing that comes out is like naked white guys. That's what you know when you Google gay. This happened in 2012, so I don't know if you still Google that comes up. That's what come up. And so the reaction that we got from white gay males, it was really interesting. They were like, well, what's wrong with being sexualized? What's wrong with, you know, because that piece that he wrote about was about, you know, being careful about being sexualized and when you're having sex and when you're dealing with this, you know, to do it because you want to, you know? And so it was really interesting the feedback that we had some folks, and some other folks were like, yeah, that happens to me all the time. And to me that was really interesting because, you know, it wasn't, it got some people confused it as like a sex negative. It was like a sex negative piece. It was like, no, this was our experience as people of color in gay clubs when you are being sort of like, you know, preyed on because of what you look like. Doesn't happen to me that much, so, but you know, it happens to other people. One of my friends said that I have tall boy privilege. That's what he said. Because I'm tall, and like, you know, I'm not easily approachable. But you know, he was mentioning how, like, you know, as a what's the correct term, like feminine center person, like smaller, you know, he gets that a lot. Like people just having that they can just be entitled to your body, and so we wanted to show that, and it was really interesting to me. The most recent collaboration that I did was with Janet Mogg, and I haven't met her. Which is like, you know, you know, we Twitter. If you haven't read her book, oh my God, I'm blanking off the book. The Redefining Realness. Yeah, I'm like, I just blanked. I read, you know, I hit her up and I was like, yo, let's do something together, and let's collaborate on something. And at the time, I was going through like this like creative block. And so I asked her, I'm like, why do you read, or what are some of your inspirations where you're going through some of this, or what inspired you to write, you know, Redefining Realness? And so she mentioned some of her inspirations, you know, for her book, and I went ahead and I drew it. And this project, I'm reaching out to other artists, you know, who I'm asking the same question, like, what inspires you? Because I feel that this work, it's nothing new. We're like by no means trailblazers. We're just continuing the tradition of telling stories, you know, from the other folks that inspire us. And so Gustavo Arellano, who I mentioned earlier, I asked him the same question about who was some of your inspirations when you get writer's block. And he's like, people of color don't get creator's blocks. We don't have time for that. I mean, writer's block. You should go for it. You should go for it. You know, that's like a white term, and I thought it was funny. But it happened to me. I was going through some writer's block. And so, you know, with this project, we actually made a bunch of prints. Was that for me?
That was an incoming call, so it's possible.
Cool.
They have to call back.
Yeah, just go.
I just hung up.
It's funny. I'm sorry.
If they want questions for you, they can tweet me.
Yeah, 2 questions.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Jeffrey, if you're watching that. I'm so embarrassed. Oh my God. What's that? She what? She was calling? Oh, sorry. No, and you know, the thing about, so I, you know, I made some prints of this image that you can get on my website, and the money is going to go. Because I was asking John, I was like, I feel, because people were asking for the poster, I was like, I feel weird about printing them, and I don't want to make money out of this. I just, you know, that's not the intention behind this. And she was like, well, let's donate it to, there's a project called the Lorena Borjas Fund, and Lorena Borjas is a trans ed activist from Queens. And so the funds are going to go to the Lorena Borjas Fund, and you can, I didn't bring any posters, I'm sorry, But you can get posters on my website, juliosalgado.com, so it's gonna go for good. It's Jana's idea, so I love her. I haven't met her. I really want to meet her. So this. So it's an ad, right? Anybody? I mean, what's wrong with this ad? Anybody? Anybody wants to why would people have gotten mad at this ad? Oh, come on, you guys are thinkers and creatives. You guys got papers. Well, basically, a lot of people got mad at this ad because it was like another instance of a corporation using people of color and women to sell ad and creating this idea that diversity we all get along, and so people were like talking smack. And my reaction to this was like when the CEO found out that people were analyzing it and breaking it down, he was just kind of dismissed it. He was like, whatever, like I don't care, I'm making money. And so to me, I was like, wouldn't it be interesting if, this was before I was able to do the billboard, wouldn't it be interesting if, undocumented people can like make their own billboards and like just put them on anywhere, and just, without asking permission, just like billboards don't ask us for permissions to see like the billboards. And so I came out with my own billboard called Undocumented Apparel. and again, I went to, folks who are, for me, it's really important to collaborate with folks who are, active in movements, and so, are deeply connected with this issue. And Mijas actually was fighting his deportation case, and I asked him, I'm like, what does it mean for you to, be undocumented, or what does that mean? And he brings up the issue of his parents, and Alan, another activist from Chicago, currently living in Florida, we had this conversation, and this is what she said. And so, I made a bunch of them, and I put them on Tumblr, and then one day I got an email from American Apparel. And at first I thought it was a joke, and I like to say this story because I think it's really funny. I thought it was a joke because it was from somebody named Marsha Brady. So I was like, this is a joke, somebody's feeling my leg, this is really good. But I Googled her, and it turns out that this person was the creative director behind that ad, and they were, because this was like, people were sharing it, like it was getting a lot of, it got to American Apparel. And so I was like, oh my gosh, she's gonna sue me, oh my god, what's gonna happen? And so I called my friends who are studying law. I'm like, Perna, call my friend Perna. He's like, am I gonna get am I gonna get sued? Like, what can happen? And so I had the woman wanted to have a conversation with me, and she was like, why are you being mean? Why are you making this ad? Like, we love immigrants. Like, we love. We make the shirts that says, what is that? Legalize the lay. Like we love you guys. Like, why are you being mean? And I was like, well, I'm like, this is just a commentary on the fact that, when people break down, the shit that you put out there, this is an opportunity for you to say, you know what, we messed up. We acknowledge what you said, we messed up. But instead, you sort of put it to the side. So I did a drawing, and, people are sharing it. And like, I had to explain to her, cultural appropriation, what that meant. I'm like, how was, because she tried to switch it on me. She was like, well, Raul, who was the man in the picture, he was like, you're killing Raul's 15 minutes of fame. Like, what? I'm like, okay, all right. I'm like, let me talk to Raul. How was Raul? I was like, how was he involved in the creative process? Like, how was he involved in how he was going to be featured? Like, what was his role in the creative process? Or did you just take a picture of him and use it to sell shirts? And she was like, well, he shows the shirt that he was wearing. And I'm like, okay, bye. No. I'm like, no, and this is, and it's, I happen to use American Apparel to make a bigger commentary on when people use us to sell stuff, because that's the point of ads, to sell stuff. And so, she was like, can you just please stop making them? We'll give you shirts. They wanted to print the thing. I was like, no, you have to apologize. I should have taken the shirts. They didn't do anything. I didn't apologize. I could have taken free shirts, but I was like, I was mad. And so they were like, no. And then, even if they didn't apologize, for that day, I won, because I had them calling me and reaching out to me, and they're like, can you please stop? And so I feel that art is that powerful. You can make, you can make people squirm, and if they messed up, they messed up. And so that was an interesting experience. It was kind of scary because I thought I was going to get in trouble, but I was like, what is he going to take from me, my other art? I don't. Assuming here. A most recent project. Well, it's not that recent. How much long do I have? Okay, 2:10. We're good in time, right? Okay.
If people get too cold, I can turn it back up.
Are people cold? No? Okay, we're good. So I started this series, this comic strip called Liberty for All, and I started this series by myself, like in 2010, around the time we were putting all those, I was making all these images. And basically, I'm not a, I didn't read comic strips growing up a lot, but I'm a huge fan of Love and Rockets from the Hernandez brothers, and Ghost World and like all that, sort of like dark comic book world. And so I was like, I can draw, I can do this, I can make a comic strip, why not? And basically, I was sharing my stories, and basically the character Liberty Martinez, she's an undocumented and queer writer who has just graduated from college, who was working at a coffee shop, a very familiar story. And so her friends are, she's a mess, she's like always messing up. And so I did it for like 3 months on my own, and I was just supposed to get on Facebook. But it's really hard to like write a comic strip. It's a lot of work. And so it's a lot of work, and Chipotle was like, they own me. And so I stopped doing the Liberty, and so recently, like a year ago, I hit up my friend Tina Vasquez. She's my best friend. We met in community college. We used to be in journalism together, and she dropped out of college, but she's a great writer. And she's written for Bitch magazine now, and like Her magazine. She's amazing. She's my bestie. She's my best friend. And so I asked her, I was like, would you be down to like bring back Liberty, and can you help me write the stories, because I need help. And I love her writing. Like her writing is so amazing. Like I'm a huge fan of hers, of my friend, and the amazing things that she's writing about. And so we were like, yeah, let's do this. Let's add more characters, and so I love talking about Liberty because it's my baby right now. So in Liberty, we have different characters, right? Because a lot of the times when you're undocumented, and people think that that's all you talk about, like being undocumented, which we do, but we also deal with other stuff, like we talk about queerness, Tina wanted to bring up feminism and what does feminism look like, in the queer undocumented community. We have other friends who are not undocumented, but are also people of color, and so we wanted to make these stories, two-dimensional, because I think about shows like Friends, for example, right? Like, why were people obsessed with a show about 6 people that used to hang out at a coffee shop? Like, why was that interesting? I used to watch it because, I was learning English. But like, why were people so obsessed with those shows, or any show for that matter? It's because they had two-dimensional stories. They had a background story. They had people writing their stories. You fell in love with these characters. You were obsessed with them. You wanted to know who they were sleeping with. You wanted to wear their clothes. Like, that's what pop culture is. And like, so they have a team. And so who gets to write? Who has access to telling those stories? And I was like, again, I'm not gonna wait for somebody to tell me, okay, let's give you an opportunity to write your own story, because I'm like, I've been doing it for a long time. And so this is basically a continuation of the work that I've been doing with Liberty. And so with Liberty, we didn't want to make the same mistake or the thing that we criticize about mainstream media, which is having other people telling our stories. So we have a character who's trans. We have a character who's a Nigerian, who's an UndocuQueer from Nigeria. We have a lesbian couple. One of them is from South America, and I'm like, neither Tina or I are part of those communities. We are not trans, we're not, from Nigeria. We can't tell those stories. So what we did, we reached out to folks from those communities, and they are helping us develop, the storylines, and not just develop, but like, we're like, okay, so how would that work? And so it's housed in Culture Strike, where, I'm part of, it's an organization that I'm part of, and I managed to make sure that, people, because if we're asking for labor from other people of color, we can't continue to do the same thing. And so like, how can we make sure that they get paid and all those things, but make sure that they are central in making sure that they guide the stories and not us. Like, I'm just drawing the story, and I'm just the creator of the story, but it's important to have the voices of the folks who are, the face of this, because again, we can't go ahead and do the same thing that we're criticizing. And so I love Liberty. It's my baby right now. And check it out every Tuesday, every first, second, and third Tuesday of the month on culturestrike.net, soon to be culturestrike.org. A little plug in there. Check it out. What else? Okay. So again, I use a lot of humor in my images. My idea of borders, if we must, it's a drag queen and a bear at the border, opening them up and be like, come on in, girl. That's my idea of borders if we had to. More recently, I started, in the tradition of Frida Kahlo and drawing yourself, and I recently went through some relationship issues, and I was like, I'm gonna put them on my art, and so I feel that it's important for us to sort of document those things, and like liberty, because as undocumented people, we not just talk about immigration and those, we go through pain, we go through love, and so I think that's important, that the importance of showing, this is like deep and I'm still dealing with that. Like I'm still trying to figure out how to put it into my art, and dealing with what does it mean, sexual liberation in our communities, what does it mean for us? And so I'm still sort of like grappling with that, and I'm putting it in in image form and like super public, for people to like share it and break it down and say that's not cute or that is cute or whatever. And finally, I'm gonna end with this. So I know, right? Naked men again. I'll wait you go. So one of the things that I do with my art too, I criticize, not, I say we need to criticize ourselves and be critical of the things that we put out there. I think when we think of like gay ink, or or gay, not gay, well, gay ink too, because they're part of it. Gay media, the shows like, like Will and Grace, or magazines like this that show this standards of beauty, man, like that we still like, for gay men or anybody that's queer, like you have to look like this. I mean, you don't have to. I mean, I could work out a little more and do it. That's not the point. The point is that they're continuing to push this images of the perfection. Like you have to look perfect. You have to, and like continuing to do what like straight media, you want to call it, that's a word to call it. To do the same thing. I'm like, I don't understand. I'm like, we're queer. Like we're artists. Like we need to like think beyond what you see in straight thinking. Like why wanting to go where they don't accept you, why create the same thing within the community? And so I decided to, I'm just gonna do it myself. I'm just gonna I'm gonna draw myself, and I'm gonna make sure that body issues are part of it, and and this it's like therapy for me. This is so therapeutic for me because I'm still dealing with that, and I think through art it helps me, and it helps me. The feedback that I get from other folks is like, that's so awesome that I get to see myself in art and see people that look like me, and that's beautiful. And this one specifically, a lot of artists in the migrant rights movement, they use the butterfly as a symbol of migration. This idea, specifically the monarch butterfly, this idea that if we could fly freely like the butterflies. And oh my God, I'm forgetting her name from yesterday from the panel. She mentioned about the butterflies. There was talk about butterflies. And but I wanted to queer it up a little bit, because mariposa in Spanish, if you get called mariposa, it's kind of being called like a faggot. And so I was like, no, I'm gonna take it back. I'm gonna take back the word, and yes, call me mariposa, because mariposa are beautiful, and we need to own that beautifulness. And it's hard as hell, but I'm trying my best, and I'm doing it through art. And you can see more of my art at juliosalgado.com, and you can see the videos at journalistadrift.com. And then if you want to get that poster, you can get it at juliosalgado.art.bakertell.com. And that's my spiel. I think we have some times for questions, right? Don't ask me hard questions. Are there any questions?
I got a question.
Yes.
Would you be so kind as to explain why you named it Osito, and the meaning of Osito in English? Thank you very much.
So Osito means little bear. I'm sorry for those of you who don't speak Spanish. Sorry. So Osito, like it's like a bear, a little bear, and like in the queer community, I guess that's not what we consider like a bear, because I'm like, dude, right? No? A cub? No, I'm not a cub. I'm a bear. Really, a cub? Did I have like facial? It was a connect. So yeah, that was the name of that. Thanks, man. So yeah, yeah, but and also, I mean, about that series too, like something I didn't mention was that what we're trying to do is, you never see a relation, or on TV, this idea that the Latino community, that Latino straight men are like not accepting of queer men, but that hasn't been my experience lately. Like I have a lot of straight male friends, straight Latino friends who don't give a damn, and so I kind of wanted to show that, and that specifically the relationship between my roommate and I, it's really interesting. Like we've been best friends for a long time. He was part of the creation of the zine when we were in college, and doing the Dreamers Adrift videos, and so when people come over and they visit us, we live together, and they're like, you guys are like have like a weird relationship, just film it. And so that's what we did, and aside from the whole HBO thing, but it's really interesting to me, the conversation that we have, and changing that notion that Latino men or like other men of color who are straight are homophobic. I mean, it's true, it happens, but there's also a lot of good stuff in our communities, and so I wanna show that, because I have a lot of brothers who are like hella down for me, and so I wanted to sort of show, and also show the problematic aspects, because I'm like, sometimes he said some shit that I'm just like, no. But we need to show the fact that we're all problematic, I think. And so yeah, that's a little more about it. Any more questions?
Except Juan Gabriel. Everybody seems like straight.
Juan Gabriel? Oh, yeah. Pero como dice Juan Gabriel, for those who speak Spanish, lo que se ve no se pregunta. So, I have uncles who like cry when they hear Juan Gabriel. That's so interesting, yeah. Juan Gabriel. Yeah.
Hi. Julio, I was very interested in what you said about your process writing Liberty, and how you've reached out to other communities because you feel like you can't write about experiences that you don't know about. And that makes a lot of sense to me. But why is that such a hard concept? Like, why does that seem revolutionary? Like, why is it, I feel like even like in mainstream media, there's always writing about others, but there's very few times reaching out to actually the communities that are being like written about and getting like real experiences. So why do you think that your process is so radical? Why is this such a hard concept for mainstream media to grasp?
I mean, I don't know if I don't know if it's a radical thing or not. To me, it just makes sense. Like, I mean, maybe because I've been through that. I mean, I've had other people write for me, like write my story, like where it started with journalism when people were talking about the experience of undocumented people. It's like, well, thank you for writing that, but you got it wrong. And so for me, instead of complaining about it, like I'm gonna do something about it, which is a creative way of doing it. And so it's important to me to not do that. And in the process, we've messed up, and we've it's not easy, but we're learning, and I think it's a really interesting learning process. And is it radical? I don't know. It makes sense to me.
Right. I mean, I'm saying that like it is because people aren't doing it, right?
Yeah.
But it makes sense.
Or they do it until they get called out. Like what happened with SNL. In SNL, it wasn't until they get called out that they don't have enough women, black women specifically, and then they went and they hired somebody. It's like, but they had to do it because they get called out.
What color are the writers though?
The majority of them are white men,
right,
and then they hire like two black women to be part of it. But it's just like it has to be to a point where like you have to do it because people are mad at you, and I don't want to wait until people get mad at me, even if they do, for other reasons. But I think that you have to be conscious, specifically, if you yourself are a person of color who feels oppressed, you can't go ahead and do the same thing.
Thank you for your wonderful talk.
Thank you.
My question is about art. In your presentation, you demonstrate many kind of print-related art. And my question is whether or not you ever think about different types of medium that in mostly I'm interested in the meaning because that affects your story and collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you. So let me just repeat the question. So the question is if other medium inspires me to do the work that I do. Is that the question? Different mediums?
Yeah.
Okay, different times. Well, I think ever since I was a little kid, I've been like obsessed. Like I think pop culture has had a huge influence in me. Specifically, I remember watching The Simpsons and Daria and like those things. It's obvious on the colors that I use that they're a huge inspiration on me. But yeah, pop culture, like TV. I remember watching Roseanne and even Will and Grace and thinking that they have some interesting topics and still like kind of not seeing yourself in there, but I'm like I get what they're doing. And so I think that'll inspire me. And the women and the men that I showed in there, they're the people that sort of have become my mentors. That I've been really lucky to actually have them, mostly because I was like stalking them and bugging them to like be my mentor. I'm like, can you teach me? Can you give me some tips? I think that's if you admire somebody, why not try to reach out to them if they're accessible and not copy what they do, but sort of like use. For me, it's like the drive, the drive to create something. It's really inspirational to me. I don't know if that answered your question. Yeah, Juan and.
Julio, if you could go back to the butterfly image. One question that I have is, I like the way in which you are translating some of your identities or some of the things that are impacting you, and I wanted to know why you decided to translate Joteria, or to put Joteria and queerness together.
I don't know. I think that I was trying to figure out why, like, what's a word in English that could translate to Joteria. And you can't really translate to Joteria. The only connection that I can make is the fact that both queerness and Joteria are two words that are sort of like, started as something. To some parts, people still use those words with a negative connotation. So I think that's why I decided to make that. To translate. And I translated the images because I have family who doesn't speak Spanish. When we moved here to the U.S., I moved in with we moved in with my aunt, and my cousins are they were born here, and we're friends on Facebook now and everything. And so I want them, and even my younger cousins who don't speak Spanish or don't understand what they it's just they don't read Spanish. I want them to see that. Like, I did it for my family. I did it so that they know what I'm talking about. And because a lot of it's like what reaction is my family gonna have? And same thing with family in Mexico, who now we're friends with on Facebook, and maybe they're watching this. I don't know. She's always commenting on every single thing that I post. And so I want them to sort of understand, to sort of like see what I'm doing, even though if they don't. Straight out ask me, like, why are you drawing that, or why are you making that? All my family says is that, like, people like what I do, and they read that, but I want them to see beyond that and connect with it, both in English and Spanish. So yeah, so they both have to do with my family. And
Julio, I was wondering if you can share with us where do you see your work moving to next in terms of your professional training, and also because you shared a little bit with me about that, but I think if you could expand on that, that would be great. And also the reason why I asked that is so that if you can share with us, to what extent do you see your undocumented status being a vehicle for that, either a challenge or a catalyst, right, for your future aspirations?
Thank you. Damn, the future. What did I tell you? No, I think that it's really hard. It's really hard. Now I just turned 31. I know I don't look good, but I'm 31. And you know, I think as you get older, all of I feel like all the things that I'm doing now career-wise, my family's at you know who I'm thinking about. You know, my mom is not working right now. She's dealing with health issues. So is my sister, and so sorry not to get too personal here, but you know, this is real. And so all the things that I do, like career-wise, I have to think about them and how am I going to do that? How am I going to save up? How am I going to do all these things? Because being an artist, it's hard. It's hard work. It doesn't. A lot of the times, as I mentioned in the video, you know, like it's funny because people think that I'm like that I'm rolling, but I'm not. Like it's just, and that you can ask any artist. You know, I'm having some, some work here and there, and I'm really lucky. But I really have to think about 5 years from now, what's going to happen. I was having another conversation too about, maybe going back to school, and because I really want to go back to do animation, because animation is like my passion. And so I want to get some training on that. And one of the things that I kick my butt on is like, why didn't I stick with art? Why didn't I stick with art school? Why did I quit? And I find myself in spaces with other artists that like use all these fancy words and like, know about art. And I feel inadequate. I feel like I'm not an artist. But then I'm like, no, wait, hold on. I am an artist. I am. I just need a little more training, And so that's kind of the direction where I'm going. It took me 9.5 years to finish school. So like going back to school sometimes it feels like no, but I need I can't do it on my own. And so for now there's like a lot of little projects here and there that are popping up, but I need to think about beyond And so I think with Liberty, what again a lot of the way that people know my art is because of the documented part. But it's like there's more to me than that. And I think that's for a lot of us who are who are part of this in one way or another. It's like there's more to us being undocumented, being queer. That's just part of my identity. It's not what makes me like I'm all these other things. But I have this thing that that they gave me even I mentioned that I don't like to refer myself as a dreamer. First of all, because I'm 31. Like I'm not youth anymore. Dreamers are like considered like youth or whatever. But that was a time in life that we all even the fact that we had those messed up narratives, they were part of my life. They were part of the things that I went through, and I have to go through that to get to a different point. And maybe in a couple of years, I'll be like, what was I thinking with that butterfly, thing? But I think we were having dinner. We mentioned we talked about some of these things about how looking back in our art or whatever we make, like how that you think back and it's like, I don't know, what was I thinking with that? But it was part of why I'm here, and it was because of the work, like Raul, who's here, who inspired me so much to do this type of work and use art, because art is all I know how to do. Like I can't think of myself doing anything else. So hopefully it works out. Hopefully, I don't know. Maybe there's people here that work in animation. Hire me. Yes.
Thank you, that was a great presentation. My question is about your process. In the first video, I noticed all of your people were facing the left. And I'm just wondering, how did that, when you were creating it, did it have a certain sense for motion? Like, were you doing something like moving it from left to right? Just curious about how you do composition in your work.
I didn't realize that. Yeah, that's true. They are like looking. Well, it's just, I work, so the way that we filmed that, we basically had like a big roll of paper, and my roommate was like on top of me. He does all the person who was in the video, Jesus Iniguez, he does all the video editing and all that stuff. I'm just the pretty face. So we, the way that we did it, and it's all about, because he's also learning, like he's also like, he like, we're learning as we go, and like he looks up YouTube videos and how to do, so you can learn doing, there's tools out there. Even animation, I probably don't have to go to school to learn animation. But basically, the way that we did it was just like, excuse me, we put a roll of paper and he was on top of me, and I just drew as I went. Like I just, the fact that came out, everybody looking to the left, maybe because I was drawing this way, I don't know. But yeah, so it was like I have, when I used to work at the school newspaper, I used to draw every day. So I have that training of like, I don't draw in pencil. Like I'm just like, let's do this. Si pasa, bien, y no, pues let's do it again. Let's add more markers on top of it. And so it's all an experiment and like really not taking myself so serious, and like I'm like, I don't want to think about it too much, because then you think about it too much, maybe I should do it more often. But I'm just like, it should be like what I hear and what the poem that because I was listening to the poem, because he recorded the poems first, and I was listening to them, and I was just like, I'm gonna draw this, I'm gonna draw this, I'm gonna draw this, and so yeah, so that's just how it works. Yeah, a lot of it is just experiment. It's experimenting with things, and me just doing what my roommate tells me to do. It's like, do it this way. No, wait, do it over there. Yeah.
Hi, thanks again for the presentation. It was really awesome.
Thank you very much.
I'm really interested in the way that images and text work together in your work and in your process, and I'm wondering if you could speak a little bit more to that.
Yeah, I mean, I study journalism. Like I don't write as often, but like words for me have, a huge thing. It's about, I don't know, it's about putting both. I don't read as much as I should. Sometimes I don't have time to read, but I like words. I think, like words and keywords. A lot of times it's like little key messages that I want to make sure to put here. As you can see on the butterfly, it's like little words that mean something, because there's another reason why I use words is because sometimes I just can't draw something. I just can't, like, how do you draw bateria? Like, I mean, of course, this is hella gay. But it's just like, I want to make sure that the word is there. I want to make sure that things are, are visual. And so yeah, it's about, sometimes I just can't think of a thing not that good. And so, I gotta make sure to have words. And I think the background I had as, writing, it creeps into me, and like I want to put in there. Like the other images, they have quotes. Because to me it was important to have the input. It's not just about a poster, but having that collaboration with folks, and what exactly does it mean to be UndocuQueer? Like, what does it mean for you? And so having that collaboration with folks. And sometimes I'm glad that I didn't go to art school, because I don't have that like, art is so like, I can't, it has to be for my own. Like I don't have that. Like I'm just like, yeah, like let's do this. Let's like, yeah. So I hope that answers your question.
No, thanks so much for that. It's great. I've been a fan of your work for a really long time.
Oh, gracias.
It's kind of exciting to see. So gracias por estar aquí.
Thank you.
It's fun. You talked about being a kid in school and the ways in which like you were studying white men, and it wasn't until that teacher where you saw like the work of Julio Salgado and which kind of feminist. I wonder if you've done any work in schools or with teachers or youth, and kind of what that, what the responses have been from kids.
Yeah, so the Frida Kahlo thing was like in the 7th grade, and then I didn't discover all the other stuff, actually studying art when I was in community college. But yeah, I sometimes I get asked to come and do workshops with kids, and I'm really bad with, I'm not a teacher, and so I think for me, like, teachers are like very, like, it takes a talent. And I remember a friend of mine, she was teaching, she teaches, Gabby, you were there? She teaches 3rd grade. She was teaching 3rd grade at the time. She was like, I want you to come and, talk to the kids about art and all that stuff. And I was coming, and the thing with kids is that if you're not interested, if you're not interesting, or you're not, they're like, ignore you. And and I'm like, if I'm talking and somebody's ignoring me, I get nervous, because I'm like, I'm boring them. I'm like, what am I gonna do? But as a kid, like, kids are super creative, and so like if you engage them, if you're like, with them, you don't tell them what to do. It's like, you show them other drawings. I'm not gonna show them bajoteria or whatever, but like other things, and they'll get excited. Like, kids are really, I think art should be more pushed, in education, because that's how kids can learn much more, and like having.
So have you been invited to talk about the bajoteria pieces, or have you gone there?
I went to a high school a couple months ago, in Richmond, California, and in the Bay Area, and it was interesting because I was back in that, you know, because when I was young, you know, I was like, queer kids get teased all the time or bullied or whatever. I mean, not whatever, it's really fucked up. But it happens to me, and so like I was in that space, and I saw a lot of these kids, and I'm like, oh my god, like are they gonna like laugh at me or say something or like make fun of me? And I just went for it. I was just like, so I'm queer, like, you know, like I was just like, I'm gay. I said gay, and they were like, whatever. Like, and I was like, okay. And then I started talking about the work, and I was showing some pieces, and they were like, oh, that's cool, like that's dope, man, that's interesting. I had conversations with Yosimar too, because he also does, reaches out to kids like in the hood where we grew up. And you know, and you know, boys specifically, they're like, yo, you know, like I like your shit, like I like you're cool, you're tight. Because they'll like if they see that you're doing something good, they'll see through the BS and they'll appreciate it. And I managed to keep their attention because you know I like to throw jokes and you know you have to connect with them. You have to like be like, you know, I'm not just because I'm in front of you, I'm not more important than you. Like you might be doing some badass things right now. And so I try to put myself in that position without being scared when I was their age. And just, you know, look at them and talk to them like real. And then we had a workshop afterwards, and a lot of the kids were like, I want to talk about this. Young women specifically are, you know, so like, I'm like, oh my god, you remember my friend Tere? Like, you know, like very that connection with young girls who, you know, I feel like my parents were super supportive of me being an artist. Like they were like, if you want to be an artist, if you want to do art, that's cool. And then I talked to Fabiana, and she tells me about how her parents were not supportive of her being an artist, and so I'm just like, that was my privilege as a male. Like I think males like get pushed a lot, like to do things, and like, you know, that's why I feel like I did it because I was told that I was going to be fine. There were some other issues that I had to deal with, but I had that in me, and so when I'm talking to like young girls who want to be artists, I'm like, go for it, boo. Don't ask for permission.
This is un comentario, just a comment. Quiero decir muchas gracias for your fabulousness. Like, I know when I first heard of your work, I was an undergrad and I had just started college, and I'm like, what am I doing here? So I remember I clipped out your MIA writing. You were talking about her new song, Paper Planes. So I still have that with me. But I just want to say thank you because my little sister, she's interested in photography and art activism, and seeing you and Fabiana and Sonia and Dina and that just like gives her an opportunity to pursue things and explore herself, like in Beloit, Wisconsin, where she's the only like, you know, Latina, Hondureña, Americana. So I just want to say thank you for like being a model and representation, not only you, but like the people in the communities you work with and collaborate with. Because I think these images are important. Like you're always into seeing things, y cuando uno se ve representada en una foto, dice, I can do that, or I can be like that. There's someone and someone else like that. Like Galo said, I used to feel I was the only person here, but I just want you to know I'm there for you. So I think it's just fabulous, and I just want to say muchas gracias.
Oh, thank you.
All right, should we give another round of applause?
Shortly, if you want to stick around.
So see you back here at 3:30.